slaughtered in cold blood. Palestinian terrorists brutally murdered 4 people in Jerusalem today, including 3 Americans. The killers attacked with a gun, knives, and axes, and murdered the innocent people as they were praying peacefully in a Jewish synagogue.
The 2 Islamic terrorists were killed in the melee, and 6 others were injured. Chris Mitchell has more from a city in mourning right now.
This amateur video shows the final shootout with police outside the synagogue. The attack took place here in Har Nof, a religious neighborhood in Jerusalem. The terrorists burst into the synagogue behind me, then shot and stabbed the people as they gathered for early morning prayers.
2 terrorist Palestinians from East Jerusalem entered inside the synagogue. They were armed with knives, axes, and a pistol. The synagogue was packed at the time with people praying in peace and quiet. And as a result of this terrorist attack, where shots were fired and innocent people were sadly attacked, 4 Israelis were pronounced dead at the scene.
We go inside, we see people just laying down with this Jewish tefillin and talit covered with blood. Part of them, I'm not sure if they were shot or just cut up or, stabbed. You know, you run from person to person, check who's alive, who's not alive. You know, every face you see, you hope it's not your brother or your brother-in-law, father-in-law, parents, because, you know, we live in this neighborhood.
Residents of the quiet area, home to many English speakers, were in shock.
They came into a quiet neighborhood. It's not in East Jerusalem or occupied territories, any of that lexicon. They came in here to people who were praying and killed them while they're praying, in cold blood. People who are going to come home to take the kids to school. The kids are sitting at home or actually walking around over here wondering where their fathers are.
We would expect the world to wake up and realize what we're dealing with. Everybody expects us to do peace, to make peace. We want peace. We pray for peace 3 times a day. But at the same time, you know, we need partners.
Hamas immediately praised the attack, calling the terrorists heroes. And while the Palestinian Authority condemned the attack, Israel's government blamed the PA for its incitement.
Ultimately, today what is needed is for the international community to unequivocally condemn the Palestinian Authority for competing with the Islamist radicals in propagating a culture of violence and hatred. That must cease immediately, and the international community must hold the PA accountable.
4 members of the Har Nof community went to pray early in the morning at the Sons of the Torah synagogue. They never came home. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Har Nof, Jerusalem.
It's horrible. And imagine what those people are living under now with this renewed threat incited by the leadership of the Palestinian Authority. Well, here at home, President Obama appears to be ready to take executive action on illegal immigrants. And that could set up a showdown with the new Republican majority in Congress. Wendy Griffith has that story from our CBN newsroom. Here's Wendy.
Thanks, Pat. President Obama is expected to sign that executive order as early as this week. Republican lawmakers call the move unconstitutional. As Caitlin Burke reports, some of them say they'll block his spending if that's what it takes to keep him from acting on his own.
The newly elected Congress is still months from being sworn in, but Republicans are vowing to do whatever they can to block President Obama from reforming the immigration system without them.
Talk about arrogance. Where was this president used to say elections have consequences? We're talking about how can the Congress force the president to follow the law?
Some critics warn the president is laying a political trap for Republicans, daring them to overreact. And some Republicans say the real fight here isn't about immigration, but the route the president has taken to get what he wants.
There's an opportunity for us to get some things done here, and instead the president is going down this unilateral path, and it's going to make it very hard for us to get anything done on immigration or any other issue for that matter.
President Obama's immigration overhaul is expected to exempt as many as 5 million undocumented immigrants from deportation, and also grant them temporary work permits. Democrats say they stand behind the president, arguing that Republicans have failed to take action on immigration. But Republicans point out that the president could have acted in the past as well.
He purposely said, I'm going to wait till after the election because I know it's not going to be popular to grant amnesty to millions of folks here that are here illegally.
The president ought to let the Republican Congress, the Republican House and the Republican Senate come together with legislation that they put on his desk which relates to immigration. And he can veto it or not. but let the Congress and let this election have its say.
Republicans say the president's plan is only a temporary solution and it won't bring about the reform that the American people want. It's still unclear how lawmakers will oppose Obama, but some have hinted at blocking his spending.
There's no reason that we can't fund all of our immigration agencies and law enforcement agencies, yet not let the president use taxpayer dollars to give Social Security numbers and work permits and photo IDs to illegal immigrants.
Caitlin Burke, CBN News.
Pat, is the president setting a trap for the Republicans?
Oh, there's no question about it, Wendy. And what I want to say, here's the deal. Just think. So, they're saying, okay, I've heard it. I heard the congressman yesterday say, well, we'll just cut off the funding. Yeah, sure. How are you going to do it? Well, you pass legislation with a budget in it, and the president vetoes it. And then what do? Does that mean that agency shuts down, the government shuts down, there's no funding for it? So you pass it again, and the president vetoes it again. And he said, I want to get this through, but it's those obstructionist Republicans. And the next thing you know, you've got a brouhaha, and he's coming out on top because he has the bully pulpit of the White House. I think the most foolish thing for the Republicans to do would be to play this thing with the card that's given them in the Constitution, which has to do with the budget. But they can't get it through, and they might as well realize it, and they're not going to impeach him. And so what's going to happen, that you'll have a stalemate, and the only way to resolve it is to have a government shutdown, and that is something that will be anathema. So the best thing, I suppose, would be to take this thing on an expedited appeal to the Supreme Court of the United States and say, would you please give us a ruling on the powers of the presidency on this one, and see what happens. Other than that, you just take small steps, and you don't approve any of his appointments. You don't let him get anything done at all in his time in office. But that is a slower process. But they'll rush immediately to pass a budget bill, and that is immediately what he's waiting for. So don't get into his trap. The trap is set. He's trying to trick you, and that will not succeed if you play it smart. Wendy.
Pat, the Senate is set to vote on the Keystone XL pipeline tonight. This after 6 years of debate. But the White House still suggests the president will veto the bill, despite bipartisan support. John Waggy has more in this story.
XL, no KXL, no KXL, no KXL.
Anti-Keystone protesters chanted outside the home of embattled Louisiana Senator Mary Landrieu in Washington, filling her yard with an inflatable pipeline.
If she wants this pipeline so badly, it can go through her front yard and not any one of ours.
But Landrieu's pushing hard for it because it may be her only hope for winning a runoff election next month. Her opponent, Bill Cassidy, sponsored a House bill to build Keystone, which could mean 30,000 Louisiana jobs. The Obama administration and Senate Democrats have blocked a vote on the $5.4 billion pipeline from Canada for years. Landrieu's Senate Republican colleagues say it's high time that stopped.
The Canadians are going to produce the oil. The only question is whether or not America is going to benefit from it, and we're going to get the jobs that come with it, and whether we're going to replace the oil, the same type of oil that's coming in from Venezuela, which is what the State Department said this project would do.
The Heritage Foundation's Nick Loris says the president's people have studied Keystone long enough.
President Obama himself said that he would make his determination based on whether it would contribute significantly to climate change, which has been the big issue around this pipeline. And his own State Department even concluded that this pipeline won't contribute significantly to climate change because the Canadian tar sands oil is coming out of the ground, whether this pipeline is built or not. So why not bring that oil down to our Gulf Coast refineries and create the jobs here?
Protesters say that given oil spills in the Gulf, Landrieu should know better than to back the project, and they're worried about environmental damage in states like Nebraska, which would house the pipeline.
Unfortunately, cleaning up the Gulf was a piece of cake compared to what it's going to be to clean up a tar sand spill in the Ogallala Aquifer.
But with people hurting for jobs, the votes may be there even to override a potential veto by President Obama.
The public wants it. It has bipartisan support. It was much needed economic growth and much needed oil coming to the U.S. So, I think it's all economic benefits, for building this pipeline. So I can't imagine what the good reason for vetoing Keystone XL would be.
John Waggy, CBN News.
Matt, why is the president so dead set against this pipeline?
Well, he's got a couple of very rich environmentalists who say, look, we've got an open checkbook for your candidates if you continue to hold fast on this particular issue. And if you cave on it, then I won't give you the billions and the hundreds of millions of dollars that will be promised. That's what it's about. There's a tiny fraction of Obama's base that are rabid environmentalists. The only thing of it is, those tar sands are dirty and nasty, but the Canadians are going to produce up there whether we like it or not. And if we don't get the oil through the pipeline, they will be sending it out to the Pacific coast and into China. And the thing is, they have already taken that pipeline, as I understand it, skirting the Ogallala aquifer, so that's not an issue anymore. The people in Nebraska said, no, you can't bring it right through here. You've got to go around the edge, which they did. And the unions are for this. It'll create a lot of union jobs. It will put people to work. It will create a lot of money. And in the Gulf, it will create jobs. And it isn't near as messy as carrying that crude oil in tanker trains throughout residential areas where they've already had some spills and explosions. So Obama, I think at this point, there are enough Democrats to override or veto. So if he vetoes that legislation, I think they can come back in and get the necessary votes. They've certainly got the votes in the House right now to override him, and I think there are enough in the Senate to override, although at this point, the numbers don't shape up as well as they would after the people are seated in January, but the Republicans will have about 54 votes or so in the Senate, and they just need a few more Democrats, but they want to hold on to Mary Landrieu's seat, and so they're saying, we're going to tip our hat to Mary, so I dare say a number of Democrats will vote to override. Wendy?
Matt, President Obama will be making the fight against global warming one of his absolute top priorities in his final 2 years in office. One reason he's focusing on climate change, well, he has more power in that area after voters threw Democrats out of office in the Senate. So the president is focusing on issues where he doesn't need to work with Congress. He'll move ahead with international agreements and regulations here at home. Some critics warn the president's policies will cost jobs. And while the president focuses on global warming, more brutally cold weather is hitting across much of the country again today. Forecasters calling the Great Lakes a snow magnet. Parts of New York and Ontario are bracing for more than 2 feet through tomorrow afternoon. The National Weather Service says the Lake Michigan shoreline could get up to 16 inches with up to 18 inches along Lake Superior. Nearly half the country is already covered in snow. Residents are shoveling out across the frozen Midwest while road crews work around the clock to clear the roadways.
We'll work double our hours today and until the snow quits, until we get all the roads cleared.
I hate the snow. If it came the last day of winter, it would be too early for me.
At least 11 people have been killed in car accidents from Minnesota to Texas. And the South saw an outbreak of severe weather as well, including an EF1 tornado with winds of 105 miles near Macon, Georgia. Well, so much for global warming, Pat.
Wendy, it's insane. The president is into this mode. What is wrong with him? The people are looking for jobs. The middle class is hurting. They don't have enough money. They're underemployed or unemployed, and huge numbers are on food stamps. And you say, what is the matter with you talking about global warming? So he goes to China and he says, oh, we've made a big deal. Well, what's the big deal? So the Chinese say in 2030, we will study the issue. We'll study it. And Obama says, well, I'm going to cut back here in the United States right away on various greenhouse gas emissions, and I'll cripple my industry here in the United States while you're studying yours 15 years out. It doesn't make any sense. But this is something you just wonder what goes on in that man's mind. What is happening to him? He's focusing on immigration and climate change when people are out of work. And they're saying, can't you do some policies if you take your heavy hand off of American industry, stop these taxes, stop these exactions, stop with these terrible things with Obamacare, and all of the incredible complexity of regulation, if you would let the American economy come free, we would be the wonder of the world. We'll outproduce everybody, and there'll be plenty of jobs. But that's not the way those socialists think. And he is a dyed-in-the-wool socialist. Like it, you don't like the name, call him a progressive. Wendy?
Pat, could the world be running out of chocolate? Say it isn't so, right? Well, some of the world's largest chocolate makers say that's the path we're headed down. They cite a perfect storm, less cocoa being produced and more people enjoying it. People ate more cocoa than the world produced once again last year, and the chocolate deficit is expected to get worse. The Ivory Coast and Ghana produce more than 70% of the world's cacao beans. Dry weather and a fungal disease called frosty pod are limiting growth right now. Plus, Pat, your beloved dark chocolate is also rising in popularity, and it takes much more cocoa to make dark chocolate. Did you know that?
Oh, am I contributing to the deficit of cocoa in the world? I just feel terrible, like I'm imposing. Hey, listen, people are starting to watch this program and realize that dark chocolate is good for you. It's good for your health. It opens up your arteries, it lowers your blood pressure, and it's just fabulous. It also cuts down on your appetite. I can't say enough good things about it.
Well. Hero to the chocolate world.
And those chocolate producers must be making a bundle if there's a shortage of it. And can you imagine, of all the things that we're concerned about in the world?
The demand is high.
We don't have enough water, we don't have enough oil, we don't have enough this, that, and the other, but we're worried about a shortage of chocolate, especially at Christmas time.
Doctors in Omaha, Nebraska say they couldn't save the life of a Christian surgeon from Sierra Leone. He had contracted Ebola in that African country. Dr. Martin Sulia died Monday at age 44. He lived in Maryland and first showed symptoms of Ebola 11 days before he died. But the first tests were negative. He says he felt called to work in Sierra Leone.
I took this job not because I want to, but I firmly believe that it was a calling and that God wanted me to.
The director of global ministries for his church says Dr. Sulia's death is a testament to his Christian faith and his willingness to, if necessary, lay down his life for others. The Nigerian army says it has regained control of the town of Chibok. That's where more than 200, mainly Christian schoolgirls, were kidnapped by jihadis from the Islamic group Boko Haram 6 months ago. Chibok is an enclave of mostly Christian families. Some are involved in translating the Bible into local languages in the northern part of Nigeria, which is mainly Muslim. And you can always get the latest from CBN News by going to our website at cbnnews.com.